UT. Oh, there I am, recording in progress. Yes. When I started at UT, I studied the effect of video game violence, and then that on kids, and then that was a concern back in the 90s, and then it evolved to internet addiction, and then smartphone and social media addiction. So I've just kind of followed it, and now AI. So I'm just kind of following the technology as it evolves. I'm a blogger for Psychology Today under Tech Happy Life. And I'm a founder of a nonprofit called the One Unity Project. We're at oneunityproject.org. And I'm still, I mean, that's just launching, and I'm updating the website currently, but it's a best of both worlds idea of why don't we leverage the best of our technologies, our interconnected world, social media, and including AI, and combine the best of what AI has to offer with the best of what humanity has to offer in kind of a best of both worlds approach, a yin yang, if you will, to work together to improve our lives and create a thriving future. Because I believe, technology, it's a tool, and it's a choice of how we use this tool. Do we use AI, for instance, to make AI guided drones to kill people, and AI sex chatbots and more addictive AI algorithms and deep fakes? Or we could use it to solve collective action problems like climate change, microplastics in the ocean, poverty, to house the homeless. Like, the sky's the limit, and it's up to us to use technology wisely and skillfully. And that's what I am advocating with the One Unity Project. I'm working on a book on AI and as we hurtle into our sci-fi future, and I'm launching the Neighbors First Pledge. I'll tell you a little bit about that at the end, or I'll follow up in an email. You don't have to write this down madly. I've got a PDF I can send afterwards. I'll probably send it tomorrow because I want to update it. But that'll have all the main talking points. So my book came out in 2018, Tech Generation, Raising Balanced Kids in a Hyper-Connected World. And that was through Oxford University Press. And I am updating I'm always updating the presentation material, but the main ideas within the book were meant to be timeless. So those hold up, and that's what I'll be talking about now. So my kids, 3 boys with my wife, this is a few years back, but we have a 22-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 14-year-old, all boys, chips off the old block. They love their video games. I grew up playing video games in the arcades. I played them all: Donkey Kong, Centipede, Galaga, Pac-Man, had the Atari 2600, and I still play video games and love them. But as we all know, too much of a good thing isn't good. So that's the problem we live in right now. So what we'll cover today, understanding, let me get that out of the way, tech's impact on kids, learning what the research shows, and the root of our problems. We're going to go into that because that is so important, because understanding the root of our problems lights the way forward. And then the attention economy, my view is it's not the technology per se that's the bad guy. It's the attention economy, which has us all hooked on our devices because it doesn't care about our happiness any more than McDonald's cares about our waistline. It's all about hooking us in to keep us engaged, because that's how the attention economy makes the money, off the clicks, off the scrolls, likes, shares. As long as it keeps us engaged, they make money, but they don't care about our happiness. They don't care about truth. They don't care about our United States staying united, because they are monetizing hatred and division, which I think is really unhealthy. So I say we need to put an end to the attention economy before it puts an end to us. That model has to go. So we get to keep our technology. We get rid of the attention economy. That's what I advocate. So some practical strategies we'll go over as well that you can use. And Some caveats, though. A lot of the stuff about screen time is still hotly debated. And I have read John Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, so I keep up with the latest research, and I'll touch base on some of that today. There's no easy answers or solutions to any of this. I mean, we're living a screen-based existence. I mean, look, we're on the screen right now. It's not that it's a bad thing, but we're on it too much. There are many unknowns still, and this is really swiftly moving. But truth and reality is beyond the headlines. The headlines, if you've heard that expression, if it bleeds, it leads. So that's part of the problem is we read the headlines that say the most scary things, but often the nuances are beyond the headlines. And that's what I want to touch on today, too. As parents, the perfect is the enemy of the good. So that's a Voltaire quote, but I love the quote, and the sentiment is we as parents, often we're trying to be these perfect parents and do everything just right. And I'd say the perfect's the enemy of the good. Aim for good enough as a parent. Play the long game. Take some deep breaths. A lot of this comes out in the wash, and a lot of times by trying to work too hard to make it work, we make it worse. One of my favorite expressions is the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and that's often what happens with our trying to manage screen time. So first, the good news. By most standards, the world is, despite the headlines, by most standards, the world is better than it has been in, thousands of years, ever, by most metrics. But you wouldn't know it by the headlines. So, for example, extreme poverty is down from 90%. It was about 90% 200 years ago, and now it's less than 9%. So it's really gone down tremendously over, since we had the Enlightenment, the scientific revolution, industrial revolution. Like, life is better by many standards, and nobody wants to trade places with a peasant in medieval Europe. It used to be really rough. As one example, in its last century of existence, smallpox killed 500 million people. 500 million people, and now it's been totally eradicated. The infected fatality rate of smallpox was about 30%, and if you survived, you were horribly disfigured. So, just that alone is an example. Nobody dies from smallpox anymore. Longevity is up to about 70 years. Historically, up to the scientific revolution and the medical revolution, life was short for so many of us. And a lot of the average, lifespan was about 35 years. As another example, infant mortality is down to like 2.9%. Historically, it used to be almost 1/3 of babies didn't survive their first birthday, and almost 50% of kids did not live to see their 15th birthday up until the last couple hundred years. And with the medical revolution and, plumbing and, germ theory, things like that, antibiotics, vaccines, that really lowered the child and infant mortality rate. And as much as people knock vaccines, we do not want to live in a world without any vaccines. I will tell you that, like smallpox and things like that, were horrible. And we're very lucky that, to have the problems we have in this first world. So generations before us would have envied the lives we live, but yet, here we are fighting over everything almost all the time. I feel like we're like two gigantic red and blue toddlers fighting each other over these toys, but breaking the toys we're fighting over. We should be celebrating every day that we're so lucky to live in the United States. And in this era with everything we have. So the bad news, the increased polarization, we're more divided than we have been in about a century. We have a loss of faith in our government, our leaders, our elections, institutions, educational system, science, and then each other. Like that, we're our worst enemy now. I'm old enough, some of you may be, but it used to be when I was growing up, the enemy was the Ruskies. The Americans were the good guys fighting for freedom. And now our worst enemy is the other political party within America. How insane is that? And even though Jesus taught, a house divided against itself will not stand, our founding fathers warned about this. Abraham Lincoln warned about it. And here we are, our own worst enemy, destroying the house that we're both living in. We have climate change going on, rising mental health problems in young people, a loneliness epidemic, despite our digital interconnectedness, or perhaps because of it. And then about 95% of people in Western countries and industrialized countries are pessimistic about the future. I don't know where you land, but a lot of us are rightfully concerned about the state of America. Funny enough, the right worries because of the left worries because of the right, but at the end of the day, we're all kind of worried. And we're worried about the world that our kids are going to inherit. Like, what is it going to look like in 5, 10, 20 years? Like, what world, when our grandkids are around, what's it going to be like? Like thinking of how far AI's come in 3 years, imagine it in 30 years. I mean, it boggles the mind. And then the attention, what do we do about the entanglement with technology and the attention economy in particular, as I was talking about? And then smartphones and social media, because we're all glued to our devices. The Buddha famously said, attachment is the root of suffering. And now if you think about it, we're attached to our phones. We're attached to something we didn't even evolve to hold to begin with. And you know what it's like to be without our phones, and I include myself here, we feel like part of us is missing it when our phones are charging, losing their charge, or we've left them somewhere and we're like, oh my God, where's my phone? And we're so attached to them. Our kids will never know the absolute freedom we had as teenagers when we were growing up, because not once when we were teens growing up did we think of checking our smartphones. And now our teens, everywhere they go, they're looking at them. And we are too. So let's look at mental health. Now, this might surprise you, the youth suicide rates among young people. I got this from our World in Data, and this is from the World Health Organization. And from the narrative and from books like The Anxious Generation, you might think that suicide rates are going up everywhere all at once. And when you look at it, that is actually not the case. When you look at a longer time frame in particular, you see there's a lot of variability in the suicide rates. And across a lot of nations, you can look back in time and they had higher suicide rates in these countries before smartphones. So the idea that smartphones and social media alone are the cause of a huge spike in suicide rates is really not true. And even in America, you can see the last year or two, it's gone down a bit. And it used to be fairly high before we had smartphones. But look at Canada's rate. Canada is probably the closest parallel with the United States, our neighbor to the north, and look at their youth suicide rate. It's going down. And here's a closer look at Canada. Now, there's variability, but you don't see the spike in Canada that you see in America. So, it's complicated. It's not that screens don't affect well-being. Yes, they do. It's that the simple narrative hides the more complicated truth. So here's a quick summary of the effects of screen time. The reality of the problem is beyond the headlines. So you have to look beyond the headlines. Ask AI about it. You can ask for some of the nuance to what's going on with youth and mental health. And if you ask different AIs and tell them ask about the controversies in the literature, you will start to see that there's more beyond the headlines. But at the same time, there's a truth we already know or sense that something is not right with this world. So both are true. So two things, this is non-dualism. Two things are true at once. It's not a simple narrative about screens and a spike in our mental health problems. It's more complicated than that. And it's also true that something deeply is wrong with this world, and we are heading in a dangerous direction. I personally feel we're all like passengers aboard Titanic humanity, and we're rocketing into some very icy waters. I don't believe we're doomed in any sense. I believe we have free will and we can make good choices. But yes, there are dangers ahead. And you look at those headlines and you see, Russia and Ukraine, what's happening in Mexico, the Middle East. I mean, our own polarization, upcoming elections. I mean, this is some serious business. And we ask ourselves, what is wrong with this world? So let's take a look at that. This is going to be the single best explanation that you'll hear of what's wrong with this world. And it will be the truth that you already know, but you don't know that you know it until I describe it. And you probably don't know the name. I just presented to all the Westlake High School student, not all of them, 6 classes of juniors and seniors. And I asked them, all of them, have they ever heard this term before? And not one single person had. And I'm like, oh my God, this should be being taught to all the schools everywhere. I gave this presentation, a version of it, to Austin High students, and I had these students come up. One girl, she said, you need to go everywhere and tell everyone what you just said here because they need to know what's happening. So this is what I want to let you know what's happening. It's the truth that you already know, but you don't know that you know it. It's called accelerating evolutionary mismatch, and it was best captured by the Harvard biologist E.O. Wilson, who said, the real problem of humanity is the following. We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. So the idea is we evolved as hunter-gatherers for millions of years. Homo sapiens emerged 300,000 years ago. Our biology is the same as it was 300,000 years ago. We're the same species, Homo sapiens. We could go back in time 300,000 years ago. If we could have babies with Homo sapiens from 300,000 years ago. But try putting a PlayStation 5 game disc into an Atari 2600 game system that I grew up with, and it won't work because a PlayStation 5 is a million times more powerful than an Atari 2600 in only 45 years. So what we have is we've created with the progress, this is the progress paradox. With the progress we evolved to make, we've created an alien world we didn't evolve to inhabit. We didn't evolve to live like we're living. We didn't evolve to live our lives on screens. But at this point in time, about 50 to 70% of our waking hours are spent on a screen of one type or another, when historically it was zero. So this is monumentally different from how we evolved. Not only that, it's evolving at an exponential rate because technology evolves at an exponential pace with respect to biological evolution. So this was captured in a quote by Albert Bartlett, who said, the greatest shortcoming of the human race is our inability to understand the exponential function. In other words, we didn't evolve to understand the very problems we're creating for ourselves, including exponential change, because saber-toothed tigers did not evolve at an exponential rate. So that's part of the problem is we've created a world we didn't evolve to live in that's changing at a rate that we didn't evolve to understand. So that is accelerating evolutionary mismatch. And I don't know if you can totally see this graph, but like at the top of the graph is our hominid evolution up to the last 300,000 years. So then you can see basically we were locked in very little change over the course of millions of years. And then 300,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens emerged, that's the bottom graph. And again, our biology has basically stayed the same as it was for 300,000 years. But cultural evolution, when we hit the age of enlightenment, industrial revolution, the digital revolution, it started going up. But then once we hit the technological revolution, so we had the cultural moves here in the red line, and then the technological revolution evolves at this exponential rate. And now we have AI. So it is evolving so quickly that it's hard to catch our breath. So I want to just kind of pause there because that is a lot. And I want to see one, I hope my mic is live and everybody heard that. So that's one. But if there are questions right now, this would be a good stopping point just to check in with people. Is there any questions? Does this make sense? I see 27 people now. Is anybody there? Hello?
Uh, We are hearing you, okay? And you
Okay,
got
good. Okay, just want to make sure. Should have checked in after like, 10 seconds, but so we got, are y'all following this? That the problem is we created a world we didn't evolve to live in, and this is straining us in a lot of ways. And this is the term is evolutionary mismatch. That's the root of our problem lies in our evolutionary roots because who we are is who we were. And I have a couple graphs on this. So the pace of change is fine. We're adaptive creatures, but we have our limits. For instance, we need the same amount of sleep that we did tens of thousands of years ago. So if we get less sleep than we need, we will suffer. The obesity epidemic in America is not because our genetics changed, it's because our lifestyles changed. We became more sedentary as we sit on our screens and at our desks and on our couches. And then we're eating foods we didn't evolve to eat in quantities we didn't evolve to eat them. So now we have that obesity epidemic. And what's happening to our waistline, folks? It's happening to our psyches. The mind and body are connected. This brain rot, the TikTok, all this stuff, it's just not good for us. Kind of like junk food. We can have junk food, we can survive it. But if we eat too much, too often, we begin to suffer. That's the problem with our screens. It's not that screens are inherently bad. There's a lot of good that comes from our screens. But too much of a good thing isn't good. And guess what the attention economy wants us to do? Overconsume. Because they don't care about our happiness, they care about engagement. So that's the problem. It's not the technology per se. It's not even progress in a way. The attention economy is really the culprit here. And that's why I think we need to put an end to it. And John Haidt is very much against the attention economy. And Tristan Harris, there's a whole bunch of people. So rather than vilify the left or right, the woke or the MAGA or whatever, it's the attention economy that's profiting from us hating each other. That is not good. It's dividing our house. So I think we need to, I'm going to start a petition soon with the One Unity Project to put an end to the attention economy. And I'm not kidding. It needs to end. There's another way to do this. How? I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll use AI to help us figure it out, but we need to put an end to it. So our digital world think of it like it's a complex system. We have feedback loops chaos theory, cascade, and butterfly effects. Everything in our world is interconnected. So, the way I think of how screens are affecting us, it's kind of like climate change. So, our screens affect us, it's true, but it's hard to capture empirically because it's like in the air we breathe. It's like climate change is real, but when you try to say how much did climate change cause this hurricane, we'll never figure it out. It's way too complicated. So two truths coexist. Our our climate change does lead to more extreme weather events, but trying to figure out exactly how much and how, it's too complicated. In the same way, our screens affect our mental health, but capturing quantifying how screens affect our mental health is really complicated because which screens? Instagram, TikTok, video games, the constant checking? Is it staying up too late? Is it because we're too sedentary? Is it because of the hate and outrage? It's all of it. It's like it's so hard to measure. We cannot separate an individual's screen use from the world that's been transformed by them. That's the problem. I call this evolutionary mismatch syndrome. This is what we're suffering from, that we didn't evolve to live in this world. So kids are growing up in a world that is so incongruent with what they need, they are beginning to suffer in all sorts of ways. The scary part is that we have a false sense of normalcy. Our kids don't even know what it was like, true freedom, that when I grew up with. And I would bet if I could survey all of you right now, and you could put this in the comments. If I gave you a wish and I wave my magic wand, I say, I can make this wish come true for you. You'll go back in time, but this time you'll have smartphones and social media when you're a teenager. Would you take that monkey paw wish? I don't think you would. I think most of us probably are glad we did not grow up with smartphones and social media. And I know I am very thankful I did not. I would have never left my room. Um, so think of it this way. We, as hunter gatherers, 99.99% of our evolutionary history was spent as hunter gatherers. And the digital era, the last 30 years, is just 0.01% of our existence as Homo sapiens. So think if we compressed 300,000 years of evolution into a 2-hour movie, it thinking we know what life is about by our current life is like seeing the very last frame of the 2-hour movie and that's it, and thinking we know what the movie's about. No, we don't. The movie is not about that last frame before the credits roll. That what life is about is the other 99.99%. So even though I'm going to give you, I'm jumping ahead here, but I'm going to give you this, that the even though this seems chaotic and there's, oh my God, it is a crazy world. This crazy world we've created is starting to drive us all a little crazy. I think that's a big part of the problem. The good news here for everyone is what makes us happy hasn't changed in thousands of years. It's the same thing it's always been. We got to get off our screens and into the real world where the real life takes place in person. So I say there are 5 things that we need to be happy. So these are like the basics. We need sleep. We need nutrition, proper diet and nutrition. We need physical activity and exercise. We need time in nature. We spend, I mean, think of this. What percentage of your day do you spend completely surrounded by nature, unplugged with your closest family and friends within a stone's throw away? It's probably close to 0, but historically it was 100%. And we wonder why we suffer. Well, that's why, because we're living this life that we didn't evolve to live. And the biggest one is in-person social interactions. The heart of our happiness is with each other in person. And you can ask yourself, this. If I ask you, what are the happiest times of your life, and you pause to reflect, what are the happiest times of your life? How many of those had to do with being on your screen? Zero. Zero. All of our happiest times are in-person connection with our kids, with our families, with our partners, with our loved ones, seeing the world, doing things, engagement. That's where joy is. That's where happiness is. And that's where the attention economy is sucking the life right out of us. It's like a vampire. Um, so the evolutionary mismatch, I roundtabled this with 5 AIs, and about 90% of our daily lives are mismatched with our evolutionary history. So this is blind prompts, 5 different AIs, and they agreed that about 90% of our daily lives. I mean, look at what we're doing now. Would a hunter-gatherer recognize any of this? No. Here's another one. Think of your top 5 stressors that stress you out. Kids can do this. I asked this of the students. What are your top 5 stressors? Think for a second. Now, if you were a hunter-gatherer 300,000 years ago, would this be stressing you out? Would you have this stressor? No, which means it's a product of evolutionary mismatch. We have wrongfully trivialized first world problems. Guess what problems our evolutionary ancestors never once encountered? That's right, first world problems. That's why they're so stressful. Which college do I go to? What major should I pick? What major do I pick that's AI proof? Oh my God, what difficult problems. No wonder they're so stressful. They're very, very complicated and they don't lend themselves to easy answers. I mean, our ancestors, it was simple but brutal. It was food, water, shelter, safety, don't get eaten by saber-toothed tigers, stay connected with your group, because if you're too much of a rabble rouser, you went on a hunt and never came back. So we had to get along to survive with our tribe. And it was all in the real world. Um, so, how much of our daily suffering comes from evolutionary mismatch? Again, I roundtabled this with 5 different AIs. They came up with 70% of our suffering in the Western world. And when we have our basic needs met, about 70% of our physical and psychological suffering come from evolutionary mismatch. Now, depending on how you frame that question, you'll get 30 to like 90%, but they arrived at 70%. And what about AI? AI is a change accelerant. It has the power to make our world even crazier. It's a greater concern than social media, I believe. I mean, I firmly believe our focus should be on what do we do about AI. I mean, what are we teaching our kids when AI can do everything better, faster, and cheaper? We're worried about them cheating with AI because AI can do the work as well as any human for most, kind of academic tasks already. Nature, the journal Nature, there was a big article that said, that just came out that said effectively we already have artificial general intelligence with the state of AI currently. It is moving incredibly quickly, folks. But I'm not a doomer. I'm very optimistic. The question we need to ask, and this is, I'm a nerd. I take this from Terminator 2. James Cameron, one of my spiritual teachers, taught me there is no fate but what we make for ourselves. I'm not a doomer at all. I'm a very hopeful person, and I think, well, why don't we just use technology the right way and ask the one question that truly matters? And I roundtabled this with 5 AIs and said, what is the most important question humanity needs to ask right now? So I did that myself with over and over again. And this is the question that the AIs synthesized. I used 5 different AIs, and this is what they came up with. How do we reshape our world to reconnect human beings with how we naturally thrive? That's what the AIs said. That's our most important question we should be asking. And I read that, and probably it makes a lot of sense to you as well. It makes perfect sense to me. Because of evolutionary mismatch, we're making this technological progress. But where are we going with all this progress anyway? We haven't even decided more is not better. It's like we got all of the humanity into Starship Humanity, loaded ourselves up, shot ourselves into space at an accelerating rate with no path and no destination. It's like insane. Where do we want to land? Where do we want to go with our progress? What does it look like? Um, so how do we use technology, including AI, to help us solve the very problem it's creating for us? And that's what I'm like, well, we can ask AI. It's a tool. Why wouldn't we ask AI to help us solve this very problem it's creating for ourselves? And this is the heart of the One Unity project that I'm doing now. It's like AI is here. It's not going away. How do we want to use it? Why not we use it to solve the very problems that we're creating for ourselves? Why not? Why wouldn't we try? It makes perfect sense to me. Um, so now this gets to what I was saying before. What do we need to be happy? And this is the incredibly good news, everybody. I want everyone to simplify life. Here is because what makes us happy hasn't changed. All we need to do is refocus on what really matters most. It's meeting our basic needs: air, food, water, shelter. Once we have that, then the research is clear, folks. It is clear as a bell. What makes us happy is strong, healthy relationships. To the extent we have healthy relationships, we're happy. And unhappiness is when relationships aren't going well. Think of our own lives when you're happiest. How many of those have to do with relationships, connection, transcendence, nature, being part of something bigger than yourself, off the screen, in real life? That's where we were meant to live. So the more time we connect to the real world and real relationships, the happier we'll be. And that's the same for our kids, because our needs have not changed in thousands of years. And we can reflect on our own experiences to know this truth. It's supported by research. It's supported by our deepest spiritual teachings. I mean, why should we love our neighbors as ourselves? Because that's where reality is. That's where our greatest joy and happiness is. Isn't love the highest good? I mean, isn't that what the Beatles taught? All we need is love, right? I saw Sir Paul McCartney in San Antonio. I was fortunate enough with my family, and those timeless songs that the Beatles were singing about. They're in our songs, they're in our music, it's in our poetry, it's in our movies. What really matters is love and connectedness. And that's what's getting pushed out by the attention economy, because it has us glued to our screens, because it doesn't care about our happiness. So the tech happy life approach is relationship is the foundation. So rather than focus on screen times first, this is what I want the mental shift, folks, is focus on your relationship. What is the status of your relationship with your kids? If you have a good relationship with your kids, you deserve a gold medal. My concern is this, folks. Parents, read books like The Anxious Generation, get so anxious about screen time that they start battling their kids over screens. And then the battles over screen time undermine the relationship with our kids. And relationships are the heart of our happiness. So we need to focus on that relationship going well. The best thing we can do as parents is have a strong, healthy relationship with our kids. So a lot of this comes with picking our battles over screens, being reasonable about it, and that the perfect is the enemy of the good. Aim for good enough. Trust your parenting. A lot of this comes out in the wash, but you don't want to undermine your relationship with your kids by fighting over screens constantly. That's one of my biggest concerns, and I've been presenting on this for years and years now. And I get so many parents that are so anxious about screens that they go after their kids. They shame, oh, if you only could read books instead of, be on screens, you'd be, the next Nobel Prize winner in literature, or, if you spent as much time studying as you did playing Fortnite, you'd be valedictorian. Like, kids like to hear that? No, they don't like to hear that. They don't like being shamed and criticized constantly for being on their screens. Um, so as parents, prioritize helping our kids meet their basic needs: sleep, nutrition, physical activity and exercise, time in nature, and then the in person social relationships. This is what we want to focus on as parents. So instead of focusing on screen time management, refocus the energy on meeting their needs, ensuring that they meet their needs. If you can get your teen to bed on time, you deserve a gold medal. Ultimately, they have to learn that themselves. But sleep is sacred. Getting enough sleep is, a lot of times it's not TikTok that's the problem. It's TikTok at 2 a.m. on school nights that's the problem. So we need to focus on the relationship and not screen focus. So change the mindset. Start asking yourself, how is my relationship with my kids? So the foundation, here's the Tech Happy Life model. The foundation is the relationship. Green light is preventing the problems before they happen, like not giving an 8-year-old a smartphone. Don't do that. That's too early, and that's going to create problems. Don't let the 8-year-old play Grand Theft Auto either. Just reasonable limits. Yellow is when problems start emerging. You try to nip them in the bud, like falling grades. They're sneaking time on their screens at night and losing sleep, those things. Red light is when you have to intervene more strongly and stricter limits need to be enforced, like they're stealing credit cards, they're engaging in illegal activities online. They can't seem to put their screens down. They're failing their classes. And, at a certain point, we have to step in more forcefully. But we don't start there. And we always focus on the relationship first. A consideration for all of you parents: if your kid's if you have do you have a strong relationship with your child, and are they doing good enough? Are they doing well enough in the different areas? Are their grades okay? Are they getting enough sleep? Do they have some other type of physical activity that they do? Do they have friends that they see in person that they like spending time with? Do they have another hobby that is off screens? If they do, don't worry about screens so much, because they're obviously managing it okay, because they've got balance. So don't create a problem that doesn't need to happen. It's about picking our battles and which hill do we want to die upon. And we don't die upon a hill trying to aim for our kids to have a perfect life, because then we're going to undermine it. Don't allow battles over screen time to define your relationship with your child. If you do, when we do this, we've lost. When the battles overshadow the relationship, we're losing. Don't parent in fear. If you're filled with fear, we got to start with ourselves and find our own hope, our own center, our own sense of peace and contentment, because how do we give that to our kids if we don't have it ourselves? And to quote from one of my favorite movies and books, Dune, fear is the mind killer. So we try not to parent in a state of fear. And trust your parenting, folks. I'm actually more worried about the parents who don't come to this, because most of you who come to this are already sufficiently involved. If there's a problem with your like the parents I see, it's often over parenting and parenting in fear, helicopter parenting, the road to hell paved with good intentions. So that's what we often have to be attentive to. So build the relationship first, then address the screen. So not the other way around. Relationship first, then the screen. I love this quote: rules without relationship equals rebellion. So play the long game as parents. Like, again, a lot of this comes out in the wash. And then I mentioned this earlier. This is the irony of screen time. Our fear of screen harm is spread through our screens. We read these scary stories about our kids' brains melting and they have no attention span and all that, which gets us very fearful about screens. And books like The Anxious Generation, ironically, make us more anxious about screens, which then fuels us to criticizing, controlling, nagging, arguing, and fighting with our kids over screen time. And guess what the research shows is really harmful to our kids? Constantly being criticized, fights, arguments, all that stuff is harmful for our kids. So ironically, and I'll tell you, all the screen time research on the negative effects of screen time on kids, they don't control for arguments over screen time, because when kids are on screens more, parents tend to nag and criticize them more, which then affects their happiness. So, how do we know it's not the arguments over screens and the criticisms that are affecting the well being of kids and not the screens themselves unless we study it? And those studies, they don't look at those big studies and see if they control for that. I haven't even seen one that controls for it. This is a huge oversight in the literature, folks. I'm telling you. In all my time working with kids, I have not found one kid ever that the identified problem when they come in is screen addiction. As soon as I hear what's going on, I'm like, oh my God, screens are the symptoms of the problem. And sometimes they make it worse, of course, but once you understand the background, you're like, oh, now I know why the kid's on the screen. It's kind of an escape mechanism for their troubles in life. Um, and then, the negativity, our fear and our outrage, our anger, our worry spreads in our digital nervous system like a virus. They call this in psychology emotional contagion. So emotions indeed spread like a virus. So the negativity, which is what trends on social media, is the outrage and hate and toxicity. We're ingesting it. So that saying, hatred is the poison we drink, hoping the other person will die. So what do we do to build the relationship? Spend quality time together doing things. Bowling, putt-putt, hiking, fishing, camping, cooking, arts and crafts, board card games. I'll tell you, I'm a nerd through and through. This is Dungeons and Dragons. All three of my boys play, and I just played on Saturday with all three of my boys, and I am in heaven. My youngest once said to me, goes, Dad, I love Dungeons and Dragons better than video games. And I almost cried. I mean, it was music to my ears. There is magic in Dungeons and Dragons, but there's magic in the relationship. There is magic in being with each other in person, whatever it is we're doing. That's where the real magic is at. And we need more of it because we're starting to lose it. So how do you build the relationship? One way is use the magic ratio, about 5 positive interactions to every 1 negative interaction. So that's what they found in the research, and that's where the criticism, it can be the flip-flop. 5 criticisms to every 1 positive. And that doesn't mean good job, good job, good job, but it's like, hey, I really appreciate, blah, blah, blah. Like my youngest son will ask every time when I come home, how was your day, Dad? And I say, oh, thanks so much for asking. That is just, it's golden, those moments. So look for the positive and try to aim to use the magic ratio of 5 positive to every negative. So ask your child or teen these front end discussions, because the holy grail is self-regulation. Because as these teens are older, it's so hard to regulate their screen time. But ask them, how much do you think is too much? Let them, don't tell them, ask them. How would you know if you had too much screen time? What does that look like? Have you ever? One time I played 6 hours of my favorite game with my best friend online. At the time, it was Divinity Original Sin 2. And it was during one of the ice storms, and we played 6 hours. And after 6 hours, I was like, I felt ill. I was like, whoa, that is way too much. 3 to 4 is the max I can do. I reached my limit. One time I played Dungeons and Dragons 20 hours in a row when I was young in real life as a teenager. Even that was too much, but it was 20 hours. When does your screen use help you feel good? When does it cause you to feel bad? Let them start to connect the dots, but ask these kind of Socratic questions rather than telling them how it is. Tell them about your own screen use, like I've told my kids of how much is too much for me. Ask them when their happiest times of life are, because chances are for most of your kids, they'll say, oh, that trip I did, that soccer game, that soccer tournament when we won oh, it was so fun with all my friends. They know deep down that their happiest times are in real life too. Um, I'll quickly go through these because I get asked a lot. What age for a smartphone? I would say sometime in middle school. Social media, they're trying to make it 16 and up. I agree with that, if they could do that, but sometime in high school. How much is too much? Again, it depends on what kind of screen time, but I would focus more on, are they getting their needs met and are they getting to sleep on time, rather than how much screen time is too much. We need to live real life and use screen time to fill in the cracks. We're living bass backwards. We're living screen-based lives and trying to use real life to fill in the cracks. It needs to be flip-flop for us to be happy. Be the change we wish to see in our kids, because our kids think we're on our screens. We're about as addicted as we think they are, they think we are. So we need to get off our own screens. It must be an adult binky. They freak out when they can't find it. And I'm almost done, and I'll save time afterwards. I was told I have an hour. But again, you'll get a handout with all this information, all the tips and strategies. But I want you to get the overarching message that it's about connecting to real life and then prioritizing your relationship with your kids. So plug our kids into other activities, try to require at least one, seek their input. Don't force them into something they don't want to do, but try to give them options. Um, Aim for developmentally appropriate access. Kind of in the middle of the bell curve is where I would aim, as access to different technologies, not an early adopter, but not the very, very last in. So try to keep the technology out of the bedroom at night. I know that's hard, but especially as teenagers, but if you can, especially managing it with the young ones. Back off as they get older. The Spider-Man quote of "with great power comes great responsibility." So, discuss the responsibility that comes from gaining access to these technologies. Carve out sacred spaces where there are no screens, like dinner time where everything goes up. If you're watching a family movie, only one screen. The phones have to go up. The laptops have to go up. Shared experiences are where it's at. That's the magic. So if we're going to watch a movie together, we only watch the movie together. We get off our screens, the other screens. The greatest gift we can give other people is our undivided attention. So we need to give that to our kids. I've literally had teenagers in my office crying because their parents would not get off their screens and ask them how their day was. So they're watching us always. So green to yellow to red is when screen use starts to cause problems. We might need to intervene more. There's this approach called collaborative problem solving. So rather than it all being top down, we try to meet our kids where they're at and work with them to solve the problem, and they're a team member. We're all on the same team trying to navigate these challenges together because our kids want to be happy too. So we're trying to help them figure out how to live that balanced life that we're all seeking deep down, that we all need. So we turn up the control dial though when it's getting out of hand. We may have to, stricter limits, enforcement of those time limits, but we stay connected. We focus on the relationship still. And one of the things, if we don't unplug a kid, do not just, don't call your kid addicted to their technology. That never goes over well. Don't unplug them suddenly, especially in the heat of anger, especially when they're in the middle of a game. Let them finish, get to a stopping point, because it can be traumatic for gamers to be unplugged. You're not going to help yourself. To solve that problem outside of when the problem is happening, be in a calm state, talk with your partner, pick a good time to talk about it, and use logical consequences. If your 10-year-old snuck the iPad at 3 in the morning to play a game, they lose the iPad for a length of time. Use the minimum consequence. You don't need to take the iPad away for a month if taking it away for a day or two will change their behavior. And then give them opportunities to earn it back. Restoring lost balance when we're in the red light, you might have to use screen time, limit their internet access, remove a gaming system. But this is very important, folks. When kids are overusing technology, it is often a symptom of an underlying problem, that they are anxious, they're depressed, there's something else going on. And if we suddenly take away their screens and don't have replacement activities ready, then all those negative thoughts and emotions come rushing in to fill the void. So they need to have replacement activities ready, collaboratively problem solve. If all else fails, there's probably deeper issues, and they need to seek professional help. And here's the summary, and I'll just leave this up and then open it up to questions. And I have all my contact information on the next slide. But okay, wow, 59 minutes. I kind of did it, and we started a couple minutes late. But I'm here to answer questions if people have them. Katie, maybe you can moderate and look at the chat. People can send them that way if you want me to follow up. I hope this made sense. But understanding the underlying cause of the problem points to the solution, folks. It's found in the real world. It's found in connection. The attention economy is the biggest problem, and we need to get off our devices and into life. Focus on the relationship with our kids, prioritize that. And try, if anything, if you can get them to enough sleep, you deserve a gold medal. If you have a good relationship with your kids, you deserve a gold medal. We're resilient creatures. We survive the Middle Ages. We can survive a little too much screen time. But I think ultimately we've got to reconnect with what matters most, and that's one another in person, in real life. And it's the truth we already know. And the truth we already know is also the truth that sets us free. So, okay, that's it. I hope I didn't get cut off somewhere along the lines of this. Is everybody there? Did anybody
Yeah,
hear
no,
me?
that was great. Tons of information.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Thank you
Brooke and
so
I went
much.
to South by Southwest, and they didn't call it the attention economy, but there were tons and tons of sessions on this, and it was interesting listening to college age and young adults talking about if they could go back and the
yeah.
research and what they know now, even being
Oh,
as young
yeah.
as they are, how they would do things differently. It was fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in a way, a lot of our civilization problems are the road to hell paved with good intentions. When they created, the smartphone and social media, they thought it would be helpful. They thought it would be great. They thought a connected world would be, awesome for everybody, but now we're finding out, oh, wait, not all that glitters is gold. Those warnings were there, but we just rushed into it. And now we're rushing into AI. That's my concern is we're repeating the same mistake we made with smartphones and social media with AI. Like we learned
Okay.
nothing.
Yeah. Okay, I got a question. How
Yeah.
can we manage all the education with us like using iPads? This parent saying it feels very stressful.
Manage all the education
All the
like
education that's happening like through
on
the
a screen.
iPads.
I
Yeah.
think collectively we need to start moving away from that and more hands-on. And that is a great question. And there's like a lot written on this. It's coming out recently. This rush to put everything online actually has not helped educational gains. So I think we need to find the boundaries and parameters and go back to more hands-on and less screen-based learning. So I think collectively we need to have that conversation. I don't have a solution, but the solution would be less screen time, more hands-on.
And I do think if you feel like your child's having issues with the iPad, to reach out to the school and
Yes,
do we need
yes,
to do they need to leave
yes,
the iPad at school and they have paper homework? And I mean, we've
yes,
tried to
yes.
help parents and students manage it better
That's a
when we're
great
aware of it.
That's a great point, Katie, because if you're having this problem, I guarantee you there's a whole bunch of other parents having the same problem. So it's kind of connecting maybe through PTA or through the counselors and saying, what can we do collectively? Let's start having the conversation, even though we might not have a quick solution. Let's start moving this in that direction.
Okay, are there any? That was the only question I have. Does anyone have a question that you want to put in the chat or
Yeah,
feel
you
free
can
to
put it in the
unmute
chat.
yourself?
You can unmute.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi.
Yeah, I asked that question. It was a great, meeting you put for us. That's I'm really appreciate you. Yeah, I have a current ninth grade in Westlake High School, and I was asking this question because I felt after winter break, she has a lots of her
I'm going to
grades.
get my drink.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes. So I felt that her grades it's a little bit decreased, and I think it's lots of pressure from the school that which is I think like you mentioned that all of this relation with the parents and the kids. I believe in this, and we are having a good relation. But the school is making us be very stressful because it's like a competition. You have to do this, you have to do that, and everything is on the iPad every day, and
Yeah.
her eyes is bothering like if lots of homework. So with this situation, how we can handle everything that you can go outside and play, and you can
Yeah.
have like extra classes besides like
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
and also college is stressful, this that
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. So, one thing I just want to validate your perception of the problem is 100% accurate. So, I call it the treadmill of life, the accelerating treadmill. We're on this treadmill and it keeps speeding up. And AI that people talk about, well, we'll work less because of AI. No, we're going to just work more with AI. Like we just keep speeding things up. We need to use AI to work less and slow down. One of the things I think we use AI, I'm an advocate, we use AI to double teachers' salary and help them out so that we can and solve these problems so that kids can go outside, have recess, have in-person group activities that are hands-on, less on the screen, and we start solving the problem. But by identifying the nature of the problem, this is what happens. People go to they say, well, what do we do about it? And then they wait. The first is we agree upon the problem. The second is we work on how to solve it, but we must agree upon the nature of the problem first. And just because it's a difficult problem to solve doesn't mean we give up. We've got to solve it. And the solve it is together because it's a collective action problem. So the problem you're identifying is like on a collective societal level, that we need to understand what are we using this technology for, and how do we put limits on it so that we can reconnect with what matters most, because it is a huge, huge problem. The teens I meet, they're so stressed out, they're overwhelmed, and then they're living in the shallows. Like we're becoming as shallow as a society as TikTok. And I worry about that this, quick dopamine fix of scroll, give me, a new video game or a new video to watch, is we need to slow down, and we need the pace of the real world, not of technology. The pace of the real world is found in the real world, not on our screens.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anyone else? I'm here and I'm happy to answer. I might have answered every question you could have ever had. I understand if that's the case. Well, what a presentation. But I imagine some of you have follow-up questions. You can also email me. So that's on there, folks, if you want to email me directly. I love to give presentations. So if you have other folks who might be interested in this presentation, your church, your faith community, other schools, student bodies, I do different versions of this. As you can see, I'm very passionate about it. And if I could present more on it, I will. And, I've got a lot of stuff going on with the One Unity project, and that would be another presentation, though. So I'll just kind of stop there. If anybody else has a question.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having us. As a reminder, I think I forgot to record it from the very beginning, but we got most of it. We will post this on our Healthy Chefs YouTube, along with people we've had in the past and the two speakers we had last week. And yeah, thank you for coming. And thank you, Mike. That was awesome.
Okay, well, I hope I hit the right notes here, folks. I know it was a lot of information, but if you walk away with the main talking points, and then you'll have the handout, which will also have reminders of all the main talking points. But simplify, I highlighted those as I presented the bigger things. And rather than getting caught in the nuances, the devil's in the is focus on the big parts of the foundation of the relationship and getting those needs met. And I'll get that handout to Katie, and Katie can distribute it. And if you have follow-up questions, or have other folks who might benefit from this presentation, please do not hesitate to reach out, because this is what I do, what I'm passionate about, and I just am so grateful for this opportunity. And I'm grateful to you, Katie, for giving me this opportunity, and also that opportunity to speak with the students about some of this, because it is so, so important, and the future's already here. So future is now.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right.
Everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.